Welcome to the Casey Anthony trial, the controversial acquittal of a mother accused of murder. In this gripping documentary, we delve into one of the most captivating and polarizing criminal trials of our time. Join us as we explore the twists and turns, the compelling evidence, and the shocking verdict that divided a nation. This is a story that captivated the media, ignited public debate, and left an enduring impact on the American criminal justice system. Get ready to uncover the details, hear the testimonies, and unravel the mysteries surrounding the case of Casey Anthony. Brace yourself for an in-depth examination of the trial that will challenge your perceptions and force you to question the nature of justice itself. This is the story of a mother accused, a trial that gripped the nation, and a verdict that still stirs controversy to this day. Welcome to the Casey Anthony trial, the controversial acquittal of a mother accused of murder. In a small town, an unthinkable tragedy unfolds as a young child. Casey Anthony goes missing. Suspicion falls upon her mother, Casey Anthony, who becomes the center of a highly publicized murder trial. The evidence is meticulously examined, the testimonies heard, and the nation captivated by the details of the case. As the trial unfolds, the courtroom becomes a stage for intense legal battles and emotional turmoil. The prosecution presents a compelling narrative, arguing that Casey Anthony intentionally took the life of her own daughter. The defense, on the other hand, counters with a different story, raising doubts and pointing to alternative explanations. As the trial of Casey Anthony unfolds, the courtroom becomes a theater of intense emotions and legal maneuvering. The prosecution meticulously builds their case, presenting a narrative that accuses Casey Anthony of deliberately ending the life of her young daughter, Casey Anthony. The prosecution argues that Casey Anthony had a motive for murder, presenting evidence of her reckless lifestyle, partying, and deceitful behavior during the time of her daughter's disappearance. They paint a picture of a mother who saw her child as an obstacle to her carefree lifestyle, leading her to commit the unthinkable act. Throughout the trial, the prosecution brings forth witnesses who testify to Casey Anthony's suspicious behavior and inconsistent statements about Casey's whereabouts. They introduce evidence of chloroform searches on Casey Anthony's computer and the presence of a decomposing body in the trunk of her car. The prosecution meticulously builds a case, aiming to prove Casey Anthony's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. On the other side, the defense team counters the prosecution's narrative, presenting an alternative explanation for Casey's death. They argue that Casey accidentally drowned in the family swimming pool, and Casey Anthony, in a state of panic and fear, attempted to cover up the accident. The defense suggests that Casey Anthony's subsequent erratic behavior, including lying to authorities, was a desperate attempt to avoid the consequences of a tragic accident. The defense introduces witnesses and experts who support their theory of an accidental drowning. They challenge the credibility of the prosecution's witnesses, casting doubt on the accuracy and interpretation of the evidence presented. The defense team works diligently to create reasonable doubt in the minds of the jurors, emphasizing that the burden of proof lies with the prosecution. As the trial progresses, the emotional toll on both the prosecution and defense becomes evident. Family members of Casey Anthony, including Casey's parents, are called to the stand, further intensifying the drama within the courtroom. The public watches closely, forming their own opinions about Casey Anthony's guilt or innocence. Finally, after weeks of intense arguments, testimonies, and deliberations, the jury reaches a verdict. The nation holds its breath as the verdict is read aloud. In a stunning turn of events, Casey Anthony is acquitted of the murder charges. The courtroom erupts with emotions as supporters and critics of the verdict express their shock, disbelief, and outrage. The acquittal of Casey Anthony sends shockwaves throughout the nation, prompting a fierce debate about the effectiveness of the justice system. It raises questions about the ability to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt and the complexities of high-profile trials. The case leaves a lasting impact on the Anthony family, the community, and the legal landscape forever, etching the trial of Casey Anthony as one of the most controversial in recent memory. The trial becomes a crucible of conflicting emotions and passionate arguments. Media coverage amplifies the public's fascination, and opinions divide the nation. The jury, burdened with the weight of the decision, deliberates on the evidence presented before reaching their verdict. In a stunning turn of events, Casey Anthony is acquitted of the murder charges, leaving many bewildered and outraged. The verdict sparks a nationwide debate, with people questioning the justice system and grappling with the complexities of the case. In the case of the state versus Casey Anthony, on the charge of murder in the first degree, we, the jury, find the defendant not guilty. The words hang in the air, causing an immediate reaction throughout the courtroom. Gasps of disbelief, cries of shock, and murmurs of confusion ripple through the spectators. Casey Anthony, seated at the defense table, struggles to maintain her composure as the weight of the verdict sinks in. Emotions run high on both sides of the aisle. Supporters of Casey Anthony release sighs of relief, tears streaming down their faces, believing that justice has been served. They believe in her innocence and feel vindicated by the jury's decision. However, the prosecution and many in the gallery are stunned by the unexpected outcome. The prosecutor's face displays a mix of disappointment, frustration, and disbelief. The family of the victim, Kaylee Anthony, is devastated, unable to comprehend how the jury could reach such a conclusion. Outside the courtroom, the news quickly spreads, igniting a firestorm of public reaction. Supporters and critics of the verdict clash in heated debates. The media dissects every aspect of the trial, analyzing the strategies of the defense and the prosecution, examining the evidence presented, and questioning the jury's reasoning. The defense team, led by Casey Anthony's attorneys, expresses their satisfaction with the verdict. They believe that the jury carefully considered the evidence and reached the only logical conclusion based on the lack of direct evidence linking Casey Anthony to the crime. They emphasize that the burden of proof lies with the prosecution and that their alternative theory of an accidental drowning resonated with the jury. Meanwhile, the prosecution faces scrutiny and criticism for their handling of the case. They defend their efforts, stating that they presented the evidence and witnesses to the best of their abilities. However, the verdict leaves them with a sense of disappointment, as they firmly believed in Casey Anthony's guilt. In the aftermath of the trial, public opinion remains deeply divided. Some argue that the jury made the right decision, based on the principle of innocent until proven guilty and the lack of definitive evidence. Others vehemently believe in Casey Anthony's guilt, pointing to the circumstantial evidence and her questionable behavior throughout the investigation. The trial of Casey Anthony becomes a landmark case, a topic of discussion that reverberates through the legal and criminal justice systems. It raises questions about the complexities of proving guilt in high-profile cases, the role of media in shaping public perception, and the limitations of the justice system itself. Regardless of personal beliefs and opinions, the acquittal of Casey Anthony leaves an indelible mark on the lives of those involved and the collective memory of the nation. It serves as a reminder of the challenges faced in seeking justice and the complexities of the human experience within the legal system. The Casey Anthony trial remains a controversial chapter in legal history, raising profound questions about justice, personal responsibility, and the search for truth. It stands as a reminder of the complexities and limitations of the legal process, leaving us with haunting questions that may never be fully answered.